Information from you. I hope I'm audible. You can type in on the chat window. Thank you so much. And my screen is visible to you as well. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Harris. That's wonderful. So without getting a delay, let's get started. So what we are going to cover today in. So I haven't planned this webinar in a very way to plan, which I haven't seen that even Microsoft has given a session on protecting your web apps with Azure Web Application Firewall. So I thought of an idea of starting with some of the beginner concept where people are lacking what is Azure Web Application Firewall, how it's work, when it has to be used on, and when we talk about WAF, which is Web Application Firewall, so there are three things to be there to apply for the policy. One on the Azure Application Gateway, then using the front door or using the CDN. So I'm going to show you a demonstration on Azure Web Application Firewall policy on Azure CDN using the Azure portal. So let's get started. So before even we start with, I just want to understand, I hope you have an idea that how to create an Azure web application. You can simply say yes or no, and that's perfectly fine if you don't know that. But important is to understand what is Azure Web Application Firewall and how to configure that. So even if you don't know about how to create a web application, that's fine, because in this session we are not going to cover so. However, how to apply a firewall, especially the Azure Web Application Firewall, that's really very important. Okay, so I'm not waiting for a response right now, but let me do a quick. So let's start it with the very basic thing. What is Azure Web Application Firewall? Even we start with this, I want to understand your understanding about a firewall. If you can please type in the chat window. Any one of you. Oh, that's wonderful, Kevin. If you have deployed many of them. Oh, that's fine. Yes, Kevin, that's true. When we talk about firewall, a protection mechanism to to block the undesired connection. That's true. That's true. So let's talk about more on Azure Web Application Firewall. So here we are going to talking about the basics. Okay, I'm just going to give you a very quick overview on what is Azure Web Application Firewall. So when we talk about it, you might and you think that there are so many users which won't bother with your web applications. However, tests have indicated that bots or there are some malicious actors probe into your new web application for weaknesses within minutes of deployment. So if you put an app on the web, assuming there are threat actors which will test the application for your vulnerabilities almost immediately. This is what we have observed many times in our means year of experience that like bots are sitting there to track your application and all. So you can also assume that such probe will continue for the lifetime of the app. So when we talk about web apps, we check for the presence for one or more common vulnerabilities, and you know that they're very well. So there are like SQL injection, there are cross-site scripting, there are HTTP, HTTPS request smuggling, or there are local and remote file insertion. So a common task in a web application development lifecycle involves writing the code to close the most common security holes, and even writing the security code will require the time and expertise of testing. So when we talk about Azure Web Application Firewall, it is one of the Azure service that provide you the centralized protection of your Azure hosted application. Okay, when we are talking about, it's protecting your web application from the common threats like your SQL injection or your cross-site scripting and all those things. So now, using the Azure Web Application Firewall, you can deploy your application in minutes. And I'm going to show you what are the various pricing options available, how much time it will take you to deploy. And so when I'm going to show you a demonstration, I will show you that what are the various pricing tiering option, how many minutes it might take when you are using a web application firewall deployment. So your web app immediately get powerful protection from those known threat and all without writing a single line of security code. So that is the beauty of using Azure Web Application Firewall. Okay, allow me a minute. I feel there are a few more people, those who are waiting to join this session. Okay, so let's get back into this. So when we talk about Azure Web Application Firewall, okay, which I'm going to show you in a while, in a very soon, after having some kind of a concept-based discussion with you guys. So there are so many features available, like I can go for managed rule, I can go for custom rule, I can go for the most, I can go for the exclusive list where I can configure the WAF, which is web application firewall, to ignore the specific attribute when it's checked the request. I can go and create the policy, I can combine a set of managed rule and a custom rule, and in a single element, which is known as the firewall policy. So you can then apply that policy to the multiple web application for the easy management and maintenance. And moreover, you can request for the size limit. You can configure the Azure Web Application Firewall to flag the requests that are either too small or too large. And you can even put the integrate your web application firewall with the Azure Monitor. Now, we know that what are the common attacks through which we most of the time writing the secure code. Our developers are spending so much of time on this. Now, with the help of Azure Web Application Firewall, some of the common attacks like cross-site scripting, local file inclusion, PHP injection, or protocol attacks, and even the remote command execution or the session fixation or SQL injection can be taken care of. Okay, I think somebody is waiting in the lobby. Just allow me a minute. Let me admit that person. Okay, welcome Narayana. We have almost started. So I just completed one of the concept. What is Azure Web Application Firewall, and moving into the next now. You can watch the recording when this will be uploaded on the YouTube channel. Okay, so let's move into the second part of that, that after what is this, how this work. Okay, so when we are talking about we have seen, like I spoke about the what are the basic feature, what are the benefits. Okay, now let's examine how Azure Web Application Firewall works. In particular, let's consider how features such as core rule set or rule groups allow the Azure Web Application Firewall to help and protect the web app from the common exploit. So when we are talking about, for example, let's consider a web form that lets an authorized web app user sign in to the user account. So what is that? They will have the three elements in there. One, the username, other is the password text box, and then there will be a sign in button, which I am already showing in this graph. Now, when an authorized user fill in the form and select the sign in button, a web app script which store the username and the password in the variable. Suppose those variable name are username and user password, and the script will execute like something like a SQL query, like select star from users where username is equal to username and password with the password. So if I'm support, like here I'm providing in the username, I'm giving this as in support and maybe the password as in 1234 ABCD, something like that. Then the SQL variable will hold those value under the variable and it will execute the SQL statement. Now suppose that attacker enter something like admin in the username field and leaves the password field blank, okay, which I'm showing in here. So it's mentioned something like this, the username as an admin and password as in blank. In that case, my SQL statement will be giving something like username is equal to admin dash dash and password as in blank. On many of these SQL system, you won't believe that this double dash, which I'm showing in here in this particular slide to you guys, okay, everything after everything after these double dash is ignored. So the previous statement will still remain as an equivalent for the code, assuming the system will assume that there is a username with the name of admin and this command will sign in the attacker as an admin user. What do you feel? Isn't that a serious breach in the system? Yes, guys, I need your buy-in. You can type in yes or no, something like that. Yes, that is. Yes, Kevin. That's one of the serious breach in there. So the example which I have shown you right now in this example. So this is known as SQL injection. Attacker can take advantage of the SQL injection and other exploit in the web app that trust all the input. So Azure Web Application Firewall creates a barrier of non-trust between a web application. So you can see it's create a barrier in there, a non-trust between a web application and its user input. So Azure Web Application Firewall assume that all input is potentially threat for the system. So what it's do, it sanitize the input, means different things depending on the different context. For example, sanitizing the input can means removing the clear dangerous text element, the one which I'm showing in here, the double dash value, and that's work. Now you will say, Disha, okay, that's fine. You have given that example to us that what is the breach in here, but how this Azure Web Application Firewall is going to work? What are the benefits in there? How I'm going to execute? Okay, so while I have not prepared many of the slides in there because I really want to spend good quality of time to show you a demonstration, but let explain me that. See, Azure Web Application Firewall has been created in such a way that it's known the exploit by applying the rules. So when we talk about such kind of a threats of SQL injection or some of the incoming HTTP or HTTP requests are coming in there. So there is something known as a rule. A rule is a firewall code designed to recognize and prevent a particular threat. Then there are core set of rules which are already available. Those are grouped in a rule group. So you will see that it has a huge collection of rules which gather into a core rule set which is called known as CRS, and these collection are based on the set defined by the Open Web Application Security Project which is known as OWAPS. So currently there are three sets available when you deploy the Azure Web Application CRS. CRS 3.3.1, CRS 3.0, CRS 2.2.9. Okay, and these three set rules have provided the big improvement over CRS2 because they reduce the false positive by more than 90% and include many more new threats in the system. Okay, while I have not prepared much slide, but what I can do, I can show you some of the links where you can find out what are the rules group available under the Azure Web Application Firewall and what are the description they are getting into that. Okay, so even let me provide some of the information in the chat window to you guys. So allow me a minute, and here you will able to see that. These are some of the rules which I have just copy pasted in the chat window for you guys. What you can do, you can copy paste and save it in your local machine in a form of Excel or in form of Word, whatever you want to. Okay. So let's talk about, so we have understood how Azure Web Application Firewall works. Yes, there are some rules, there are some modes available like detection mode versus the prevention mode. So in my demonstration, I'm going to show you that this web application firewall can operate into two modes. One is the detection, other one is the prevention. Detection mode will logs the request but allow the request to go through. However, the prevention mode logs the request but does not allow the request to go through. So what is a common scenario in that case? So a common scenario is to run Azure Web Application Firewall in detection mode. So when you are testing an app in detection mode, you can check two type of problem. One, the false positive. The other one is the false negative. Now when I say false positives are what? Those are the legitimate requests that the firewall flags are malicious. And when I talk about the false negatives, malicious requests that are the firewall allows. So once the application is ready to deploy, you can then switch to the prevention mode. So in my demonstration, I'm going to show you the uses of the prevention mode, not for the detection mode, because I'm not going to do any testing. I'm showing you a live demo using a CDN host, which I have already deployed in my machine. Okay, so there are so many deployment option available. Now, when we talk about deployment option, okay, you deploy Azure Web Application Firewall as a part of Azure front-end solution for your web apps, okay, which you are able to see in here. That here is my web app sitting in there, and here is the firewall which is protecting this web application. Okay, so you begin by creating the firewall policy, which may include manage rule set you want to use, which rule within what rule set you want to disable, any custom rule you want to add, which mode you want to use, and so on. Okay, so for the deployment, you can either use the services, which we are going to talk in the upcoming slide. There are three basically. One is the front door, other one is the Azure Application Gateway, or you can go for the CDN, which is the Content Delivery Network. Now, front door is what? When you create your Azure Web Application Firewall policy, you can associate it with your existing Azure front door profile, or you can do it with the CDN profile, or you can go and use it for your application gateway. Okay, now let's move into the next slide, which is talking about when to use the Azure Web Application Firewall. Now, how it's work. This is what we have seen. Now you need some criteria to help you to evaluate whether your Azure Web Application Firewall is suitable choice for your company. And to help, you need to decide, and let's consider these are some of the scenarios which you are looking forward to evaluate that. So as a part of your Azure Web Application Firewall evaluation, you know that in which of the scenario it will fit. So the first one, you have web app that contain sensitive or proprietary data. So some web attackers are motivated only by challenge of breaking into a system. That's very common scenario. However, most of the hackers use injection, protocol attacks, and similar kind of a threats with payoff in mind. That payoff might be any of the following item. It can be a customer credit card number. It can be sensitive personal information such as driver license number or passport number. It can be a secret company data. So in that case, an attacker might use that data directly. For example, user could purchase item with a stolen credit card number, and more likely, however, the attacker might sell the data in the criminal marketplace or hold the data for ransom. So if your company runs one or more web application that store the sensitive data, Azure Web Application Firewall can protect that data from such kind of attempts. The other one is you have web application that requires user to sign in. Now here, the web app attackers are often try to obtain the account username and password. Having user account credential is useful to those attacker in like many ways. They can access the app as an authorized user. They might able to run the script and command with privileges. They might able to access other part of the network. They might able to use the account's credential to sign in and other site and services. So does your business use web application that require user to sign in? Yes, there are so many. So Azure Web Application Firewall can detect such kind of a threats such as SQL injection, local file inclusion that attempt to display or steal account credential. Now, keeping in mind that's really very important that Azure Web Application Firewall is just one aspect of what should be the multiple prog network security strategy. For sign-in data, that strategy might also include having the password requirement and the storing password in the encrypted form. Okay, that's some of the one of the best practices in there. The other one is your web app developer lack the security expertise, which means coding against the full range of potential web app require the significant expertise. So having the detailed knowledge of the concept like the journal structure of HTTP, HTTPS request response, the specific request type like GET, POST, BOOT, URL and UTF encoding, user agent, query strings, another variable, commands, part, shell, and similar data for the multiple server operating system, front-end web technology like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, server-side web technology such as SQL, PHP, and user session. So what if your company's web development team lack knowledge in one or more of these concepts? Then your web apps are vulnerable to multiple threats. So by contrast, Azure Web Application Firewall is maintained and updated by a team of Microsoft security expert in there. Then your web application developer have other priorities, which means it's unlikely that your company deploy its web application for the sole purpose for such kind of a threating such as SQL injection and remote command execution. It's far more likely that your company has some other purpose for its web application. That purpose might be selling the product, providing the services, or promoting your business. So chances are you might prefer that your web application team focus on fulfilling those purposes rather than writing a robust app security code. With Azure Web Application Firewall, you let Microsoft manage the security while your team focus on your business. Then you have web application development budget constraint, which means coding in-house against all the this OWASP webs explored is expensive proposition. Web developer with necessary security are real, very rare. These developers can command higher salary with the colleague who lacks such kind of a year of experience and the expertise. So Azure Web Application Firewall isn't free. However, you might find that it is more cost-effective solution than hiring a team of full-time web security expert in there. Then the context. Okay, so when we talk about the time context, here many web developer team code in-house. They are most of the team that soon realize that creating and maintaining this kind of a code is time consuming. So you can configure you can configure the Azure application gateway instant, or you can configure Azure front door profile with Azure Web Application Firewall in minutes, rather than jungling between the teams that how they are going to do it. Then, of course, you can build and deploy it very quickly. Okay, so for example, consider two different type of application. We know that when we are dealing with the client, we need to provide them proof of concept. The application is only meant to prove that some technique, proposal, and design is flexible, or it can be easily be created. Or you want to prepare MVP, which is a minimum viable product. The app include only enough features to be usable by early adopters who provide the feedback for the future version. So both proof of concept, POCs, and MVP web applications are meant to be created and deployed quickly. So in this cases, it doesn't make sense to I'm sorry, hand code against those kind of a threats. You still want to protect these application from the malicious actors. So it makes sense to place them behind a web application firewall. Now, the last one is your web application launch will be a high profile. Is your marketing team strongly promoting a soon to be released web application? Are they posting messages on the multiple social media platform to drum up interest in the app ahead of its release? That's great. But do you know who else might be interested in your app release? Yes, of course, those are the hackers or the user who might decide to try to disrupt the app release by launching some of the common attack against the app. So to avoid that such kind of a disruption, it might make sense to protect the web app with the Azure Web Application Firewall. So this is what we have covered till now. What is that? How it's work and when it has to be used. But let's take a look on that when we are talking about three different kind of services. One is the Azure Application Gateway. Then we were even talking about what you say, the front door, and the last one is the CDN, which is the content delivery network. So here let's talk about first thing first, the Azure Application Gateway. So when we talk about Azure Web Application Firewall on Azure Application Gateway, it's provide the centralized protection of your all application from the common export and vulnerabilities, which means web applications which are increasingly targeted by such kind of a common vulnerabilities and the common attacks. Okay, this is application gateway is based on the core rule set, which is known as CRS. Okay, now all the web features which we had, some of them which I have copy pasted in your chat window, those are some of the policies we are talking about. Okay, but application gateway, here we are talking about operate as an application delivery controller, which is known as ADC. It offers the transport layer security, which we known as TLS. Okay, or you can talk about SSL, the secure socket layer, or the termination, the cookie based session affinity, or the round robin load distribution, or the content based routing. Okay, so when we talk about the application gateway, security enhancement include the TLS policy management, end-to-end TLS support, and application security is strengthened by the WAF integration into the application gateway, which means this is integrated as a part of application gateway. So it's C. It keep on checking what are the valid requests are coming, and accordingly it will make a distribution to the multiple website. So if your organization is running multiple applications, the multiple web application, it's best to use the application gateway because that provide you the one-stop solution. It is easy to configure. It's a central location to manage. Now you will say, okay, that's fine. What are the benefits? What are the core benefits of using this? The inclusive of WAF in there. First thing first, of course, it's talk about the protection. It's protect your web application from the web vulnerabilities and attacks without any modification to the backend code. It's protect the multiple web application at the same time. You need not to be do configuration for each one of your application. You need to configure only this gateway, and this gateway will take care of all the application which is sitting behind of this gateway. Okay, so your application gateway can host up to 40 websites that are protected by the WAF, which is your web application firewall. You can create a custom web policy for the different site behind the same web. So you will say, okay, Disha, what if I make one set of policy and it is taking care of all my application? No, your policy can differ to your different set of web applications sitting behind that wall. Okay. Now the other benefit is monitoring. You can monitor the attack against your web application by using the real-time WAF log. The log is integrated with Azure Monitor, which track the WAF alert and easily monitor the trend. It will integrate it with the Microsoft Defender for the cloud. Third is the customization. You can customize the WAF rules. Some of the rules you will see when I'm going to show you a demo in few seconds, or sorry, few minutes now, that there are rules which you can configure. There are rule groups which is suitable for your application requirement. You can associate a web policy for each one of the site behind on your web. Okay, you can create the custom rule, and there are so many features. You can go for SQL injection protection, you can go for cross-site scripting protection, you can go protection against other common web attacks like command injection, HTTP request smuggling, HTTP response splitting, and whatnot. There is a list which will go on long and along. And there are so many policy and rules and set which are provided in there. Okay. Now, let's quickly talk about the Azure front door and CDN and then move into the demonstration part. Okay, so when I talk about front door, now Azure Web on the Azure front door provide a centralized protection for your web application, very similar to the application gateway. But here, web defend your web services against the common exploit. Okay, it keep your service highly available for your user and help you to meet the compliance requirement. So WAF on front door is a global and centralized solution. It is deployed on Azure network edge location around the globe. And here you can see this is something where I'm deploying that on an edge location. Okay, so it has the global web policy, the custom access control, a rate limit. So this is sitting, I'm sorry, at the very front layer of which is checking, okay, if a request is coming from a bot, immediately block it. It will check the authorized user, those who are connecting. Not anything has in system, not as in bot in there. Okay, so it has introduced two different SKU in preview. One is the front door standard, other one is the front door premium SKU. Okay, so We talk about again the policy and rules. There are custom rules, there are managed rule set, and there are again the mode provided as in detection mode and the prevention. So it has the rules which will allow, which will what you want to block, what you want to log, where you want to redirect. It provides such kind of an action in there. Okay, and moreover, it give you a range of policy which give you the custom authored rules like IP allow list, geographical based access control, and this is also something which is available to your CDN network. So let's take a look on CDN, and then I'm going to show you a demo in there. Now CDN. Um, when we talk about this, Microsoft provide a centralized protection for your web content. We know that CDN is for what? CDN is the content delivery network, which means I know I have a static content sitting somewhere at my Azure storage account in a form of image, in a form of a content, and I just need to use that and publish that for my internal user or for my external client, those who are using my website. So you want to keep your service highly available for your user and help to meet the compliance. So WAF on Azure CDN again is a global and centralized solution which deployed on a network edge around the globe, and of course it's provide you the policy which can easily link to your CDN endpoint in your subscription. So how this work, if you are able to see in there are incoming requests which based on the web policy, the custom rule or whatever rule set you have defined, it will check what is authorized, what is not. You define that rule and accordingly it will pass on the traffic to the web services and the CDN content. So very similar, very similar. But let's see how that's work. Let's take a quick look on how this is going to work. Okay, before even I start with the demonstration, I hope that's make a sense. I have explained not in a very depth, but I try to cover the concept so that when I move you into a demo part, you will understand what I'm really talking about. Just give me a thumbs up or something you can write in the chat window before I move into the demo part. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, let's move on then. So allow me a minute. Let me see if my portal is still active. Okay, that's wonderful. So in this demonstration, what I'm going to show you a very quick demo on how to create a basic Azure Web Application Firewall policy and apply it on an endpoint on Azure Content Delivery Network. So what I have already created is in my means I'm going to show you the web configuration, but what I have already prepared very well in, I have a storage account. In my storage account, I had created a blob container. In that blob container, I had images, all the content which I really want to use in my CDN. Then what I have done in my CDN, okay, and if you want to try that by yourself, what I can do is I can give you some instruction which is a part of one of the course. It is basically a very small not very small exercise. It will take near about some 60 or maybe 70 minutes of yours if you want to create a web application using Azure Content Delivery Network. So what you will be doing before you come and create a policy is, okay, so let me show you that. This is something pre-work which I have already done. Okay, so I will share that link with you. It's one of the web application enhancement, a part of AZ204 course. Okay, so what you will be doing, what I have already done, I have created a web application using the Azure Content Network. So this is an architect diagram. Means what I had done, I had created a regional group with the name of marketing content. Within that, I had created a web application which has a storage account with the name of content host MP. Now what it is doing, I had created a CDN even before that. created a storage account, uploaded some of the blob in the container. Then I had created a web application which using a Docker image, and there I had created a CDN profile, created the CDN endpoint, which is caching the content from the storage account and loading the content into the web application. So you will see that there are very detailed steps which has been mentioned here, that how you can create a storage account, how you are going to upload or how you are going to create a web application, how you are going to use a Docker image in there, a by default image which is provided by the Microsoft, and then how to configure the content, CDN and endpoints. All those steps are available in here, which will help you to create and creating a storage content, uploading some of the images in there which will be used as a part of the content of that website or web application, and followed by which you have created the endpoint. Okay, and uploading the static content in there. So this is what is available. Okay, so let me show you that what you can do. You can go into this, you can simply search AZ204 GitHub, which will take you in here under the instructions, under the labs. You have the lab instruction in here. So I'm sharing that link. I'm not going to show you a demo on this, but will be showing a demo to you how to configure the this WAF, okay, policy. And if you need some files, under here you have all files folder. Under the labs, within that folder you have the solution and the starter folder, which you can use as a part of this lab exercise. Okay, so this is what. So since I have already created that, now let me show you these steps how you can configure that. So prereq is you should have a web application up and running with the help of Azure CDN profile and endpoints, and I have given you that instruction that how you will be doing that. But let's see how to create a web application firewall policy. So here in my Azure, I have account. In my account under the Microsoft Azure, I'm going to create a resource. So let me search in there for web. So in my marketplace, it will search for the web. Why it is not coming? Okay, here it is. My Azure Web Application Firewall. Okay, so let me, and the beauty of this marketplace is it will give you the tutorial and all those kind of a thing if you are very new to, so you can explore it anytime. So this is one of my free tier account and with a credit of some $100 to $200 value. Okay, I'm not supposed to create a virtual machine. Let me go back and let me click on create and let me search that again. So not the virtual machine, but I need the web application firewall. Please note this is a Azure service. By mistake, I had selected this virtual machine, which a company name as an Ad Nexus is selling it out with the rate of something like this per hour. But I need a Azure service to create so. So be aware of this. Let me click on create. In my basic tab, what I'm going to, so this is my basic details which I'm going to fill. So in the basic tab, while creating I need to select policy for, which means I need to select my Azure CDN, which I have activated in my storage account. Okay, do let me know that are you aware of that how to create an Azure CDN? Just give me a quick yes or no. Using a storage account? Okay, that's good, Kevin. If you're not, it's a very couple of steps which I can show you right now at this moment itself. Okay, So allow me a minute. Let me show you those couple of steps because that is really very important when you are doing this exercise by your own. So let me open my portal here in. Okay. So please remember when you are creating a new storage account, and let me select the new subscription. So I'm going to create the same store in the same resource group, DCS storage 01, just like that. Okay, this is not available. And let me create. I'm just creating a blank storage account. Okay. I just want to show you there are very easy steps how you create Azure CDN. Okay. So here, while it is deploying, to enable Azure CDN in your storage account, it's way too easy. Once it will be created, once it will be available to you, once it is be deployed and resources available to you, you just need to go inside that resource, and within that resource itself, you can find out in the search, the like search text box which you are able to see in here, you can simply click in here and type Azure CDN, but let this resource to be created first. Okay. And while this is creating, okay, let me go back and resume my demo. So I have already my Azure CDN in here, okay, as a preview part of. So it is talking about CDN provider as in standard Microsoft. I have to select my subscription since I have two subscription. One is disabled and the other one is the active. So by default, it has been selected. Like in your organization, you might have multiple subscription which are belonging to different department or maybe a project. So be very careful when you are selecting those subscription in there. And let me select the resource group. So I'm selecting the CDN RG, and let me give a policy name which should be really very unique. So I am, since this is a demo, let me go for policy, and I hope this name is still available. Okay, great. This name is still available. You can see this green checkbox. And here I'm not, remember we were talking about policy mode. So there are two policy mode, detection and prevention. Detection has been used for the testing purpose. However, the prevention has been used for the actual deployment. And before I go, let me show you. Okay. On the second tab where I had created a new storage account, it is available. Go to the resource. Here you will see on your left hand side, this is the blend, which has multiple options are coming, that data storage container, blah, blah, blah. And under the security and networking, you have the Azure CDN. Okay. So inside the container, I can create a new container with the name of, let's say, images. And here I can upload, let me select all the images and upload that. Going back to my container. Okay, let this be completed. Okay, so I have this container with the multiple images. This is my container. This is my storage account with this is my container with the name of images. This is my storage account. And here you will see that something known as Azure CDN, which means this will create a new CDN endpoint for my storage container. Okay, so I can give a profile name. Let me give it as in DCS Profile 01. I'm creating a new profile. And from the pricing tier, please note there are so many pricing tiers are available. So I can go for Microsoft, I can go for Verizon, I can go for the ECMI and even the premium one. What is the difference in here? So when you create a profile, when you create an endpoint, if you are selecting this one like ECMI, it will take only 1 minute for the deployment. However, the Microsoft may take 10 to 15 minutes, Verizon may take up to 30 minutes or 20 minutes. It totally depends. And even the pricing will be vary. Okay. So I will select this and let me give the same kind of a name in here. However, with the name of endpoint. Okay. So let me create. So what it will do? This is a new storage account. It will enable with the Azure CDN. So this is something which I have done earlier. So now coming back to the web policy, I have created a new web policy with the name of web demo policy in here. And now I need to set up or associate the web policy page because this is the policy which I'm going to create. It has to be associated with my CDN profile or with my endpoint. And to do so, let me click on manage rule. But first thing first, I will go on to the association. Here you will see it's showing me a button with the name of add CDN. And here you can select the profile which is available for this current account. So you will say, okay, Disha, you have recently created a profile. Why it is not appearing? Please note those profiles sometimes take 10 to 15 or sometimes 30 minutes to be appear in here. And that's why before coming for this session, I have created 2 or 3 profiles so that I can use those for my demo purpose. So I will select one of the profile in here. That profile has the endpoint. So I will select that endpoint and add this. So this is something now associated with my web policy. And what else I can do? While I can associate this policy with my CDN point, I can also configure some of the firewall policy. So you can see there are some policy settings available. There are even custom rules are available. So first thing first, we have already enabled a policy mode. So by default, web policy, as you have seen, was coming with the detection mode. So when you create a web policy, the detection mode, it does not block any request. Instead, it requests matching the WAF rule. Okay. So here I have selected the prevention mode. Why? Because here I want that it should prevent and it should follow the rules which I am going to set up now. Okay. So let me take you to show you the custom rule. Now I'm going to enable adding a custom rule which will be helping me to configure 2 types of the one custom rule I'm going to create for the match rule and the rate rule. So here let me add a custom rule and let me name it as an match rule example. This is enabled. Let me set a priority. It can be up to 100 number. So I'm giving it as an 100 number. So what kind of a condition here I'm applying it? Let me do a match of the string in here. The match variable is my query string where the operation is content of what value I'm doing that. Let me pass on as in block me. Okay, so this is one of the custom rule which I'm matching in here. And if this condition matches, then if something is coming from this, then it should deny the traffic. Let me also add one of the rate limit in here. And here, let me name it as an rate limit example. Let me set the priority to 20. The rate limit duration will be 1 minute and the threshold value will be 100. Now what condition I want to? I want to match up the geolocation. Okay. And here the operation is like my country region. For example, I want to make it for United States. Okay. Which means if it is not matching with United States geographical location, then it should deny the traffic. So these are the two limits I have mentioned. Now we do have the rule set. So under the manage rule, you will see that there is a default rule set which is already enabled and making there. So if I expand all of them, you will see that what are the rules. So I have not selected any one of them, but let me select this. I want to apply a default rule. This is what. So whatever I will be selecting, I want to restrict the file access at M. It should be blocked. It should be enabled for me. Okay. So I have selected one of this. And let me review and create this. So what is this? Isn't that much easy to set it up for your web application? I've shown you one simple example for CDN. The similar kind of a thing you can do with your application gateway as well as with your front door. Okay, so this is what it is. I have just deployed my CDN. You have seen those are just images, but it was using a CDN endpoint that had been now using a web policy. So everything will be filtered coming in here. It will take some time. It will take near about some half an hour kind of a time. Okay. If I go to the resources, this has a policy now. This is something which is enabled. This is something which is controlled now. And what are the CDN point which is available in here? If I go and click in here, it will show me the profile. Okay. So this is something now enabled. This is something which is available. Okay. So this is how you can enable the web policy. Let me know if you have any question. I've already taken so much of your time. Okay, I hope I'm able to clear some of the thoughts and concepts related to web and how to use it on a CDN. If you can please give me your valuable feedback in here. This month we have announced some of the session and the upcoming session. If you can see, let me. The next session we are going to deliver on automating security event responses, which is more on the automating the security event responses for AWS. So please follow us, register for the other events so that we can help you to get through with more things. So next two session has been planned for AWS, not for the Azure, but we are looking forward for your response. So this is all about for this. I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you, Harish. Thank you all.